listening to the best of the Martha Zoller Show. To hear the full show each day, tune in to AM 550 and FM 102.9 WDUN or log in to accesswdun.com and click the Listen Live button from 9 to 11 Monday through Friday. Ashley Bell is here with me today. Ashley, welcome to the program.
Good to be back with you, Martha. It's been so long.
It has been so long.
You got a whole new setup here. It looks amazing.
Doesn't it look great?
Yeah.
Didn't it look great? Now, we're going to talk a little politics with Ashley later, but I want just you give us an update of what you're doing because I see you. Well, I gave up Instagram a year ago because I was wasting too much time on it. So I'm basically, I still do X in a little bit, but you're very involved on Instagram, or were.
Yeah, for work
and
stuff,
so tell us about what you're doing right now.
Oh, well, I'm living my best life, Martha. We have, been fortunate enough to be able to get more into business. Politics was my business for a long time. Like I told you, growing up here in Gainesville and getting elected at 26, 27 years old. A lot of my friends who I did that with are, retired now, moved on. But I had a whole another career ahead of me. So after the White House, I definitely got deeper into business, used a lot of my connections from working in the Trump administration, people that I knew, and went out and bought some businesses in a couple of different sectors. I have a technology company that's doing really well that focuses on affordable housing in the Midwest. We did a really great venture of buying a film production company out in California that was doing really good. It was incubated at Disney, and that gave me a really big platform to really get involved in that space and tell stories that really are still government based. We have the number 2 show in the world right now on Netflix called The Recruit. There's a story that bases off of a CIA lawyer. That's
Noah Centineo. Is that?
Noah.
I love him. I love him.
So Noah's our lead.
Yeah.
This is season 2. We broke all the records there. It's still number 2 in the world right now overall on Netflix. But it's got some government in between. And we just left South by Southwest, had a world movie premiere where we filmed the very first behind-the-scenes documentary filmed at the White House and at the State Department. It crossed over from Trump to Biden, featuring Roger Constance, who served with me at State Department. Roger was the guy who was the only person designated to negotiate hostage relief. So he's the special presidential envoy for hostage affairs. SPIHA. Long title, which means
long
you do
title.
nothing.
That's what they do.
Long title means you do nothing. So we made a documentary following Roger and his ability to bring Americans home who are incarcerated unlawfully overseas. We focused on Venezuela. We focused on Victor Maduro. Just launched that movie. Really excited about it. Looks like it's coming to be streaming at the end of the year. But that gave me a chance to do both, to still be on the creative side, but also use my connections in government to get access that nobody else is getting access to. There's nobody who can say they filmed behind the scenes at the White House, inside the State Department, on planes with the CIA, to show how, look, if all of us travel overseas now, every now and then you go, what happens if you get kidnapped or something happens and you end up locked up? What will your country do to come get you home? Now,
you said it bridged the Biden and Trump administration. And, my sense of during the Biden administration is that I didn't want to get caught or something bad happened to me because they didn't seem, and it could be wrong, the backstory, they didn't seem to care that much if Americans got in trouble.
Well, what I think this film shows is, because Roger was appointed under Trump, he was the only political, because all of us had to leave when Biden came in, except Roger. Roger was the only one that stayed, so you do get to see a big difference. I think the film will make the case that, and you can judge it yourself, is they had favorites.
Yes.
If you were famous, if you were somebody that could get the attention necessarily that was on the side of their base,
yes,
you got different results and different speed. And I think in this film you'll see that one of the main characters had a deal on the table that Biden turned down and came back a year later, took the same deal and told the family, I did what I could for you. But if you're a family member and your loved one's been in a horrible place called the House of Dreams being tortured for a year, and you knew Biden had a deal a year ago, and then a year later comes back and takes the same deal saying he did you a favor, and you're still dealing with the PTSD from that, it's tough.
I mean, since October 8th, I've been wearing a Star of David with a cross in it because I'm 65 years old now. There's not a lot I can do. I can't go to war, although if older women like me fought wars, they'd get over a lot quicker. I tell you what. So that's what I do to try to keep an eye on the hostages.
Yeah.
That's my small way that people ask me about it, gives me an opportunity to talk about it, and that way. But it did feel like there were 8, 9 Americans. Did anybody ever speak their name in the Biden administration?
Right.
That was horrific.
Right.
Horrific.
It was rough. And when you look at this movie called Take No Prisoners, the best way that we tell this story, and this is what's unique for my business and why I bought this business, P3 Media, is our business model is we publish long form. I still help write.
Yes.
And my business partner, Adam Shalowski, will pen under him in Vanity Fair. So we published a story called Take No Prisoners in Vanity Fair in June. And so people get a chance to read the investigative journalism behind it. And Adam Shalowski is actually his character that Noah Centineo is playing. So it's actually based off some real stories.
So people go, you know who Noah Centineo is?
Yeah, how do you know who Noah is?
Because I loved those books, All the Boys. And I watched,
boys, that's right.
Yes, I watched those movies. I still love rom-coms. I'm like a normal person. So I got it, and my daughter even said, she goes, you know who Noah Centineo is?
That's
I said,
hilarious.
yeah, I love The Recruit. I didn't know it was yours, but I love The Recruit.
Yeah.
So anyway, it is pretty bad that I think guys are cute that are like old enough to be my grandsons, but that's okay.
Look,
I
pays
still
the
think
bills
they're
around
cute.
here. We need people saying
that's right. That's right. I still think he's cute. But anyway, so I want to talk about Rex Tillerson for a minute.
Okay.
Because here's my sense of Rex Tillerson. I think he was kind of misunderstood.
Mm-hmm.
I know he got crossways with the president. He got let go or he left or whatever it was. But I kind of liked him. I thought his idea of bringing in people to the State Department from all different backgrounds, not just from Ivy League schools, we talked about that back in the day, was a good one. I think maybe he got off to the wrong foot, but I liked him. I thought he was one of the better people in the cabinet.
Yeah, I mean, I got to know Secretary Tillerson, obviously, as his special assistant. I was part of his team that got him confirmed, helped bring him into the administration. He definitely was what you would expect from a CEO of a major corporation like Exxon. Had a completely different way of viewing things. I think from that perspective on who he wanted to bring in, was a breath of fresh air, but also is a non-political way of doing things. Because you and I know that, when an election happens, people from your party have been gunning for these positions through the Heritage Foundation, through all their means, very hard trying to get these positions.
Right.
And then when you come in and say, you know what, all you political guys that have helped the president get elected, I'm going to go over here and get this person who nobody knows. And so the Republican apparatus just didn't like the fact they didn't know who they were. And that doesn't mean they weren't qualified, but they weren't a part of the establishment that had created the policies that we have been following for a while.
Do you feel, and Rex Tillerson, and you can answer it, whatever, or for him, it doesn't matter. I think he feels a little justified at this point in time because the one thing that President Trump said he didn't do as well in the last administration was how he picked people, that he was listening to all these insiders, and Rex Tillerson left fairly soon. I mean, fairly early in it. But now, if you look at the cabinet he's got now, there's a lot more Rex Tillerson types in this cabinet than there was in the first cabinet. And I think it kind of I think that Rex Tillerson has kind of won out because that approach is what people really wanted, was that business approach.
Yeah.
Am I crazy?
No, you're not.
Good
but I think it's a good analysis, but I think what also was happening is that if Rex had came in when Pompeo came in, he would have had a better shot. The first part of the Trump administration was very chaotic versus this time. He's had 4 years to sit out, think about it, come back with a plan ready to go day one. I think that nobody thought we were going to win the first time, so you had just a pile of people fighting each other with not enough preparation. And you had the Never Trumpers that were still in there. You had the RNC folks. You had Trump's Hollywood friends that he's had for a long time that were still kind of hanging around. That fight took about a year. And Rex unfortunately came in at a moment where he wanted to totally reorganize the State Department. And I remember a longtime State Department official who had been there for probably 30 years told me, he was a weebie. Those guys that we be here before you, we be here after you. They'll just kind of wait you out, and they don't care what you say. And he told us, he said, look, he can come in here and try to reorganize the State Department, but this is one of the oldest institutions in our republic. He will die on this hill if he chooses to try to reorganize something that really would take 10 years to do, and he may have 2. And so I think by trying to reorganize internally and also fight these other fights, he spread himself really thin for someone who didn't have the experience in D.C.
So what I remind people of is in 1933 when Roosevelt came in, I was not alive then, but I know the history. He was doing things really fast. Okay, it was before digital communication, so it was all in writing. So it was that's where the whole first 100 days phrase came from.
Right.
Was from 1933.
Right.
He was getting sued by courts. He was getting enjoined.
Right.
He was getting all these things happening, saying he couldn't do what he wanted to do to reorganize the government.
Yeah.
And now we're kind of there with Donald Trump in the second term, where he's trying to make all these major changes, but it's like 100 hours instead of 100 days. And I think it's really interesting how these things go in cycles, because I don't think anybody can be like Donald Trump. I think there's like 4 presidents in our history that nobody can be. Trump is like an entity on its own. So is Reagan. So was Roosevelt, and
right.
probably Lincoln. You know, maybe right. Obama's in there, maybe. But there's 4 that definitely kind of remade how we did things, and nobody else is ever going to be like them.
Right. Right, and that's really just a testament to just how different this time is, to have a president have 4 years out and come back in. It's, you know,
he's much better.
Well, he knows what he wants to do and knows how to do it. And I think even if you don't like the president, I don't think anybody on the left is saying he's doing anything he said he wouldn't do. They may not like it, but he's definitely doing it. And I think that's just a testament to having 4 years to think about it. And he has a different kind of team around him. I was at Mar-a-Lago maybe like 3 weeks ago. Just the who's at Mar-a-Lago has totally changed from who it was 4 or 5 years ago. It's a nice blend of people now, to your point, of corporate folks, the longtime Republican people, but also just the innovative tech side crypto people who you just didn't really see around that much. So not just Elon, there's a whole universe out there. It's part of the reason why we bought this bank in Utah. It is giving us a chance to really see on the financial sector in this new era of non-fiat currency, which is the Bitcoin rave, that is something that's coming that's not going anywhere. And if you don't have a foothold in that industry, you're going to get left behind.
Well, do you think that your time in the Trump administration helped you or hurt you? Because there's a lot of people that were out there, people went with Trump, never going to work again. Did it help you or hurt you?
I mean, it just depends on how you handled it. You know,
yes.
I talked to, I had lunch with a dear friend, Omarosa, the other day. It didn't work out for her as much as she would have liked it to.
Yes.
You know, she's still doing reality TV shows. One just came out the other day that I haven't watched. But when I talk to other people, like Ambassador O'Brien in Utah, he's doing fantastic. You know, it just depends on how you handled it. Here's the thing. If you're a career politician, and we talked about this all the time when I was hosting your show years ago, there's a reason people don't like career politicians, because they get so far out of whack with what's going on in the real world that they're not really effective. They think they know. They become more academic, and it's theoretical. I think the president had time to get back into the real world, see for 4 years what's happening to the country, and come back in with a very fresh perspective. And I think the appointees that are coming in need that type of blend of public-private experience.
Well, it was a huge mistake when the federal government became so bureaucratized, where there's pension plans and there's benefits. And the same way with the Congress, the pension plans and benefits, it becomes a job. You know, I know a lot of the guys, when you walk around the state capitol, a lot of the men that there are statues of have kind of checkered past histories because they came up during slavery. Okay, I'll let's set that aside for a minute. But if you look at their resumes that are on those statues, okay, it's like, okay, this guy served in the House, Georgia House, and then there was a gap of several years. He probably went home to run, you know, whatever business he had. And then he came back in another position.
Right.
You know, and he took a few years off, and then he came back maybe as something else. And it was this kind of in and out of public life that you used to see.
And that's the balance we had to strike. You know, I had opportunity to come back into this administration, and for me it was, I'm 44 years old. It's hard to believe.
Can't believe it.
Can't believe it either. But I'm at that peak of my private sector earning years.
Yes.
I don't need to be in government right now.
No, I mean, my son Chip is the same way. Y'all played basketball together. He's like I don't know. I don't even know what he does. It's something with cloud security, okay? Mm-hmm. So he has worked he's always getting headhunted. And few years ago, he was at Dell. He hated Dell. He was a VP at Dell. He hated that because it was just meetings about work. He likes to work, okay? Then he went with this startup, Appia, I think is Apnea, something like that. And they just got bought by IBM.
Yeah.
So he's in that place, you know, where now he's working for IBM, which is the oldest computer company in the world. But they are, he says, you'd be surprised, Mom, they are really innovative, and they're moving into the next generation. They're not being still.
But to your point about whether or not I was better or not working for Trump. I think for me, I've had to have a balance. And the opportunities that I'm getting right now, a lot of them are because of the Trump administration. I would say the bank that I'm buying in Utah with John Huntsman and his family.
Oh, yeah.
I wouldn't know the Huntsmans and a lot of the people out there in Utah that have helped me, put this together. Being in government, I couldn't be buying banks right now. That's something that I honestly didn't know I could do. And living here in Gainesville, that I could grow up one day and own a bank. You see it happen, but I don't know how to do it until you meet people working in the White House that own a lot of them. And you realize how to do it.
Hometown boy does well. We love that. So how's Lauren?
Lauren's doing amazing. She's getting a chance to not have to go into the office as much and work remotely. She's still practicing law. Kids are having a good time. BW's finishing this last year at Gainesville High School coming up. And Blue is actually in D.C. pretending to be me like 20 years ago, rocking and rolling in politics. So
I can't believe that. And Sage, where's she in school?
She's here locally. She's at Enoda, having a great time and enjoying what 9-year-olds enjoy, which is iPads and friends on the phone too late and all the fun stuff that
Friends on the phone too late. We'll have to talk about that.
Exactly.
All right. Ashley Bell, great to see you.
Good to see you, Martha.
Putting the talk in news talk. It's the Martha Zoller Show on AM 550 and FM 102.9 WDUN.
Joni Alpert and I are here, and we're getting ready to talk to Sheriff Gerald Couch. Susan from Gainesville on Friday asked a question about how our local law enforcement is working with ICE to move out deadly gang members. And what I shared with her was that we've worked with ICE for years and years. But Gerald Couch said that he would come on and we'd talk a little bit about it. Sheriff Couch, thank you so much for being with us today.
Good morning, Martha. Thank you for having me.
So give us just first of all, has anything changed in how you're working with ICE? And how do you work with ICE related to gang members in our community?
As you already covered, we've worked with ICE for, several decades now, and we've always had a great relationship with them and Homeland Security, and we're going to continue. They work with us actually on a daily basis. So that will continue. Nothing's really changed since, President Trump has taken office, other than the ICE agents are now free to do their jobs. I hear that from them. They've had their hands tied for many, many years, and now they're able to actually get back and do the work at hand.
30 years ago or so, when Bob Vass was the sheriff, we had a pretty serious gang problem here in Hall County. And how would you characterize the gang problem in Hall County today?
Back during the 90s, when the period you're talking about, I worked homicides back then, and our gangs were, it was a pretty violent time. We had a lot of first-generation immigrants that came into the county, and there was a lot of trouble right off the bat. But since then, of course, back in the 90s, Sheriff Vass, he did create a gang unit at that time. And it evolved. Of course, it joined the man's unit, the drug unit, later on. But it was one of those things that we really focused, and we continue to focus on drug investigations and on firearm investigations, which leads to gang investigations, because that's the trade that they're in. And so we are very aggressive in our enforcement of all of our gang statutes, and also the other crimes that are associated with gangs.
Hi, Sheriff. This is Joni Alpert. I have a question for you. I live in Hall County. Do I need to be concerned, and how would I identify a gang member?
Well, being concerned, I think you need to be concerned, period, regardless. You always need to be wary of your surroundings and make sure that, you know what's going on at all times, and be vigilant. Now, as far as the gangs in Hall County, like I said, we are very aggressive in our enforcement. We use pretty much the broken window theory with our gang unit, and that they are very aggressive in their enforcement. So how would you identify a gang member?
Well, for example,
that's the difficult part.
For example, if I go to the shopping to Publix at the Villages, should I be aware of gangs? I'm not, I leave my car open. I leave my house open. I tend to be, and the joke is, I was talking to Martha before the show. I was so shocked to hear that we have these gang members here in Gainesville. So what do I need to do as just a layman person walking around to the square or to Publix? What do I need to do, and how would I spot them?
Well, That's a good question, and I'm glad you asked it. First off, don't leave your car unlocked. That's the number one crime that gangs look for. We have a lot of the firearms that we come across from gang members or anyone for that matter, any of our arrestees, they are from entering autos where somebody's left their car unlocked, they left their weapon in there, they left cash, they left their computer or what have you. But that's how these gangs survive. Number one, lock your car.
Okay.
It's so funny because my daughter lives in Atlanta, Gerald, and she's like,
Yeah.
you just live in this world, Mama, where you leave your whole life in your car, and you should not do that. Right. But it's just a different place. And certainly, you guys are on top of things, and that's what I love about it. But I do think that we're not feeling this. Tell me if I'm right or wrong. We're not feeling what other communities are feeling because you guys have been on top of this for 30 years.
And that's true. And we're very fortunate here to have had, the foresight to create a gang unit and to address the problem that we had at that time and that we continue to do so. Our Special Investigations Unit, they just made an arrest back at first of the year for one of our gangs. It was the G-Shine Bloods. And so since then, we arrested a lot of their leadership, and so there's very little activity with those individuals now. And you're talking, we have around 200 people that have been identified legally as being gang members here in Hall County. So that's out of, 230,000 people? So, going back to your earlier question about, what do you do to, basically keep safe and what should you do?
Right.
Well, be wary, be vigilant at all times. To identify a gang member legally, we have to go through several steps. And there's certain qualifiers that we have. It's a point system. Of course, self-admission being the greatest of all of those. If they say they're in a gang, believe that they are. But we look at tattoos. We look at, the colors that they wear. It used to be like, you see on TV, you got the Crips and the Bloods. One wears red, one wears blue. Well, that's true today, but not so prevalent. The gang members really don't want to be too much identified out in public. But like I said, we do stay on top of it. We're very aggressive here in our enforcement, our identification, and the least, little crime that comes across that we know a known gang member, and we make that charge. Now, a lot of folks think that, they hear the word gang, the phrase gang member, and they think immediately illegal alien.
Right.
Well, those two don't always go hand in hand. In fact, of all the gang members that we've identified currently in Hall County, none of them are undocumented or here illegally.
So what about fentanyl? How is that going? Because what we're hearing is that it's drastically reduced coming across the border. Has that filtered into our communities where we're seeing less of it here?
Not yet. I hope to.
Yes.
I hope to. But we haven't seen that ripple effect yet. We're still, in fact, we've got several investigations ongoing now in that regard. And fentanyl has, attacked every community across this nation, and it's been devastating. And it's high time that we put a stop to it and at least slow it down, if nothing else, because there's been so many lives that have been lost due to fentanyl.
Yeah, fentanyl poisoning. I call it poisoning. It's not a drug overdose in the same way. You know what I mean? It's poisoning. Correct. It's a horrible thing. Yes.
Yeah, yes. It is terrible. And a lot of these kids that die didn't mean to die. They were poisoned, as to your point. But going back to the safety in Gainesville, I'm going to have to be more vigilant because I will go over to the Villages and Publix. I have a great time. I want to look at the fruit and the produce. I don't pay attention. My purse is open in the front of my wagon, and people have come over to me often and said, "Excuse me, you be careful here." And I was shocked. So I think I need to be more careful.
This is Gerald. For being a New Yorker, she's very naive.
Well, I thought I was safe here is the point.
Yeah, so you are safe here.
And you are, but you still, any community, you've got to be vigilant because there's bad characters in every community, and you may come across one. It sounds like I need to get my guys to give you an extra safety card.
I think so. I think leaving your purse open in the front of your shopping cart is probably a bad idea.
Yeah, I tell you what, I learned my lesson the hard way, Gerald, on that. I was having a meeting. It was in Buckhead. I had a meeting in Buckhead like 10 years ago. And I normally put my purse in between my legs. I put it between my feet when I'm sitting at a table like that. but I didn't close it up all the way. And I noticed there was this guy sitting next to me that had a cast on his arm, and he got up and down several times. That's all I remember. But then about 20 minutes later, I'm in this coffee meeting. I mean, it's a business meeting. I'm having a meeting with somebody, and I started getting notifications on my phone that someone was trying to buy $2,000 worth of televisions with my American Express. And then I go look in my purse, and my wallet is gone. And that was the day I learned, okay, I have got to close this. I don't care where I am. I have got to close this purse up because it's not necessarily safe anywhere you go.
No, it's not. And don't afford that temptation, for folks, because if it's there, they're going to take advantage of it.
Yeah, and I mean, is that a similar story you hear from a lot of people, that someone was sitting next to them and they noticed something weird about the person, but you don't want to think the worst about people, right? You don't want to think.
Oh yeah.
You don't want to live your life thinking everybody's a criminal, right? But I think it's important to know, and what I love about the work that you do at Hall County is that you guys have been working with ICE. You guys have been doing this. And so it's probably an easy relationship where you guys know each other well. You know what you need to do and what you don't need to do. And it works well for us.
It does. And, we've had an ICE agent work out of the jail for decades. We've had Homeland Security investigators that work hand in hand with my guys, in Criminal Investigations Bureau daily. So they're very close to each other, and any issues that come up, we communicate. And now, that's the key to success is communicate between these agencies.
Have we had anybody that we've had to remove from this community based on Tom Homan's deportations that they're doing, or is that really in other places?
No, we've had, there's one individual that has been removed that was a criminal alien from, he was from Venezuela. That was the most serious thing that we've had is that one individual. We've had, let's see, I believe the number is around 70 people, maybe 76 people, 75 people since first of the year that have been detained by ICE, that they place a legal detainer on.
Absolutely.
So you're not talking a great number of people, but I would say that number probably increased before the end of the year.
And if someone sees something that is, they're not sure about, how would be the best way for them to communicate with your office to check it out?
Well, of course, they can call our dispatch center at 911 or their non-emergency number at 770-536-8812, 770-536-8812, or they can call the sheriff's office here directly at 770-531-6900.
Well, I appreciate the work that you do. I feel safe in Gainesville, but we all have to be reasonable about what we do. So I appreciate it. And I'll tell you a little trick that I just learned. I have one of those key fob things on my car, and they tell you that when you get 30 feet away from it, that it automatically locks. That does not always happen. So I had to learn that even though technically, as I walk away, my car is supposed to lock, it doesn't all the time, so I make sure to lock it before I leave the car.
There you go.
There you go. All right, Sheriff Couch, thank you so much for always being available.
Thank you so much, Martha. I hope y'all have a great day.
It's local radio, and that's why you're listening. It's the Martha Zoller Show on AM 550 and FM 102.9 WDUN.
Joining me right now is 9th District Congressman Representative Andrew Clyde. Andrew, welcome to the program.
Well, great to be with you, Martha. Thank you.
So explain to us what happened yesterday and what it means.
Well, we brought a rule vote to the House floor, and every vote that comes to the House floor where that is a contentious vote, where we're trying to move President Trump's agenda forward, has to come under a rule. All right, it cannot be a bipartisan type bill where they can do away with the rules. It has to come under a rule. And so in this rule, we had two bills that we were going to vote on. One was the SAVE Act, which prevents, folks from voting in a federal election without voter ID and without being an actual United States citizen. So that was one bill that we were going to vote on. The second one was the No Rogue Rulings Act, and that would strip district judges of the ability to issue a nationwide injunction. If you think about it, here district judges are acting like the Supreme Court and individually issuing nationwide injunctions against the President Trump and his agenda. I mean, they're trying to, tear down or or completely eliminate the results of the November election. And that's simply not tolerable. I mean, if you look at it, even circuit court judges, they don't make individual decisions. That's a 3-judge panel at least. And then you have the Supreme Court as the 9-judge panel, and they're the ones that make nationwide decisions, not district courts. So we need to fix that here in Congress and codify it. So that rule was in this package, along with another rule, another piece of legislation to take down the privilege of a discharge petition that Rep. Luna had put forward. And she worked with all the Democrats on the other side and a few more Republicans to literally bring forth a piece of legislation that allowed proxy voting. And, proxy voting was tried by the Democrats back with Nancy Pelosi. It is totally unconstitutional because we are required to assemble and vote here in Washington, D.C. And this proxy voting legislation would have allowed new moms and new dads to vote from home. Well, I'm sorry, but there are no special privileges for members of Congress. We've been dealing with this issue for 225 years, and the Founding Fathers did not allow for proxy voting in the Constitution. So we put this piece of legislation in the rule to strike it. And these 9 Republicans then, what they did is they voted against the rule. They voted against the SAVE Act. They voted against the No Rogue Ruling Act simply because they wanted proxy voting. And that's very disappointing to me. And I can't imagine that they would want to put a hold on President Trump's agenda for proxy voting. That just makes no sense to me. So that's what happened. And we're going to have to regroup next week and figure out how to move forward on that.
So is there nothing going on, or are there committee hearings going on, or are you just out for the rest of the week?
Well, there's no more voting on the House floor. There are a few hearings going on today, all right, but that's it. It's just things that literally, you invite witnesses in or you have meetings, scheduled already with constituents or something like that are here in Washington, D.C., that I'm staying for. But other than that, there's no floor votes going to occur the rest of the week. And we got to figure out with these other 9, that are putting a block on President Trump's agenda, how we're going to move forward.
And how do you think that's going to look? Speaker Johnson looked pretty dejected, and I get it. I understand initially how they're presenting this as, why can't, if someone's had a baby, why can't they proxy vote? But I think it's pretty well understood that, if you can't be there, you don't vote, and it just changes the whole, the number that you have to win. I mean, it's the way it's been done since the beginning. I don't think it's necessarily old news. It's that the way I look at it is no one gives you the job of being a congressperson. You seek it. You run for it. You raise money for it. You advocate for it. And so you understand what the rules are when you take that. It doesn't mean that you don't ever change the rules, okay? But you know what the parameters are when you take the job. And it's a different kind of job because it's not like you're just filling out an application. You are pursuing getting this job. So I'm very frustrated with what happened yesterday.
You are 100% correct, Martha. Being elected is a privilege. People do pursue it. They do fully understand what the requirements are. And now we have this, these members trying to change the rules. I think it's actually selfish. And so they can literally vote from home. And it was horribly abused during the last administration or actually 2 Congresses ago when Pelosi was in charge. I mean, I don't know if you remember the Democrat that was out on a boat, fishing,
right,
when they were supposed to be voting in D.C. And it's both parties abused it, okay? Which is why when Republicans took over, we eliminated proxy voting. As it should be, it is a violation of the Constitution, the requirement to be here, to have a quorum, all right, and not to be voting from halfway around the world on vacation or whatever you want to do. We Republicans corrected that after Nancy Pelosi lost the majority, and we need to move forward in that manner. This opens the Pandora's box. And if we're going to allow it for new mothers or new fathers, then, okay, what about folks that are sick? What about folks that have parents that are ill and they really want to be home with their folks? I mean, you name the reason, eventually what's going to happen is there's going to be an excuse for everything, and everybody's going to be able to proxy vote from home. We will no longer Congress, together, and it will destroy the fabric of the institution, and which is why it's so horribly wrong.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. What do you think is going to happen next? And are you happy that you're going to have 2 more Republican congressmen with you next week?
Oh, absolutely. We're happy about Florida. That was a great election, both by Randy Fine, which, by the way, we got 1% more of the vote. We got 14% of the vote when it was an open seat with Randy Fine than we did with Mike Waltz. So actually, we got a little more support in Florida than we had originally. So I think that has a lot to do with President Trump. I mean, I think President Trump may need to lean in on these 9 members. He's pretty well stayed out of it. But now that his agenda has been stalled by these 9 members, I think the president probably needs to lean in and say, hey, the American people elected me to accomplish this agenda. You're part of that. They elected you to do the same thing. Get on board and let's go forward and let's accomplish President Trump's agenda.
Representative Andrew Clyde, thank you so much for being with us today. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you, Martha. Great to be on WDUN.
To hear the full versions of last week's Martha Zoller shows, go to the podcast page at accesswdun.com, and you can follow me on social media at Martha Zoller.